G'day, I'm Neil and my handle is Wiley11. I'm just going to put my disclaimer here. Whatever I do and say on these videos is well-intentioned and well-meaning advice. I accept no liabilities whatsoever for any disclosures. If you take some advice or act on something that I'm saying on these videos, you do so entirely at your own risk. I'm doing it based on my experience. These videos are my attempt to give back to YouTube for the help and assistance that YouTube has given me. So once again, you follow along or follow advice from these videos entirely at your own risk. Okay, and if you're not happy to do that, click this off and off you go. Because this is purely my attempt to give back to YouTube, as I said, for the help and advice that I have received out of YouTube. So this is just my little attempt to give back. If you're happy to follow along at your own risk, buckle up, sit in. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome to part 6. Today we're going to be addressing the wiring and running the wires through the printer, and whatever little jobs need attaching and fixing before we can start calibrating and physically using the machine. There's over an hour of footage. I make no apologies for the way I operate. I'm not a photographic expert. I'm not. I am trained in electronics and I'm trained in IT. I'm also trained in management, systems design, system control, process control, project management, blah, 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 blah. And I've been doing it for a few years. So I've got some worldly experience about me. But in terms of building a printer, I'm like most of you, come in a box, good luck. And that's why I decided to chuck it up on YouTube. Now, I think there are way more informative assembly videos for the Prusa, but perhaps not as entertaining as mine. I don't know. So if you've been with me, great. I'm happy that you're still here. A lot of you have lost patience with me and gone elsewhere. Well, that's fine. But I really enjoy putting these videos up, and while I do, they take a lot of time and effort. When you're a novice like myself, like this series of videos on this printer build, I've spent over a week just editing and piecing together the footage to get results up onto YouTube. And that's before I even tried posting them to YouTube. So they haven't gone up yet. They're just sitting there waiting to go up. And when I start uploading them, they take the better part of half a day of video on my connection to get up onto YouTube. So everything becomes a bit of a nightmare for me, like if I've got 20 videos at half a day, there's 10 days of tying up a computer, uploading to YouTube. And I don't have to sit there and watch it, and I don't. I've got other things I've got to get on with. But, it's a frustrating process where you tie your machine up. So I have two machines, and one of them's broken at the moment, and I need to fix it. So while things are happening on this machine, I'm diagnosing and repairing my other box, which has been old faithful, old reliable. I bought it 12 years ago, and it's a 12-year-old laptop, 15-inch or 17-inch, I think, and it's a brick compared to these lightweight, solid-state drive systems. And I like the old one because it's got a DVD burner in it, and if I need to burn files to DVDs or get something off a DVD, you get files, installation files and things. You got it. It's got all the other attachments on it. It's got SD card. It's got all that stuff on it, and it was ahead of its time when I bought it. And I paid a lot of money for it, and it's been very reliable. So, all of that said and rambling on, let's get into this build so that I can upload things. Please support my company, nightglowmanufacturing.com, because if you'll buy my end gems, these little beauties here, if you'll buy those, what happens? Well, if I hold it the right way up, you can see it is an end gem. They glow in the dark and they're a pathway marker. So I've been promoting these quite heavily. Nightglowmanufacturing.com. If you'll buy them from me, I can continue to post videos and give back through YouTube and give back to the community as well. Because we do a lot of outreach with the kids, and I try to put on people, you know, with some circumstances, you know, give them a go. So typically my turnover is high with employees, but that's a good thing, because what I'm doing is I'm putting them back on their feet and getting them back into the community as productive people, you know, with a new sense of purpose, that I've taught them a new skill, and they're out there and maybe they're just driving a forklift or something, whereas before they were just, I don't know, answering telephones and things, and now they're driving forklifts. These are the sorts of things, you know, just small changes in your life can make a huge difference. And, you know, there are plenty of young people that get lost, and not just young people. I'll give anyone a go that approaches me. If they're genuine and they need help, I'll try. You know, I can't always succeed, but I'll ask around and see if I can get them placed. And if I can't place them myself, you know, I do my best. I give back to the community, and it's all about, where do you sit? Where do you see yourself in the community? And these YouTube videos are another way of me giving back. So I'm passionate. You know, I've had a lot of personal stress and whatever, but none of that matters. It just matters that we all just keep moving forward, and that we do our best. You know, just so do your best. Give it a crack. You know, if you don't think you can do it, just give it a crack. Get in there and keep swinging at it, and it'll fall over. You know, so whatever's in your rope, you should get out of the way, and you'll just keep moving forward. Right, so let's get into this build. We're into the wiring and the final stages of the assembly. So hopefully then all we've got left to go through is the calibration and the first use of the unit, and watch it destroy the hotbed. It does some really good things in part 7. It actually destroys the hotbed protective layer. That's fun. Righto, so here's part 6, where we're having our issues with our wires and running the wrong wires to the right motors and the right wires to the wrong motors and stuff. So buckle up, sit in, let's go for it. Alright, welcome back. What we're doing is we're moving forward with this build. Yeah, I don't know how to do this videoing. Really need this over here somewhere so you can see what's going on. There's really nowhere to put it. It's below the level of the table. Guess I could try to prop it up here somehow. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how we're going to do this. I guess you can see what's going on, but you don't get a really clear picture of it. Got chairs in the road and all sorts of things. I don't know. So I'm over here on the build, and what I've done since you last saw me is I've swapped the motors over. So now all these leads coming out of the Z motors, that's coming out of the right hand side, and here's the one out of the left hand side. It's this one. And as you can see, they're now in the right place. That has to go right under the printer, through the little tunnel there. Now, wires are going in all directions. I've got this wire here, which has come over here for some reason. It doesn't need to come over here. Everything's got to end up here. So I'm just sort of running wires to see how do they best go. to get them sort of into this area. And we've got to deal with this wiring here. Now the red wires off this need to go to the control for power. So the red wires are going to come this way. And everything else is going to go over there. So let's just see if we can organise that in such a way that we don't kill anything. Now these are going to run like this, right? Now these red wires, they've got to come out of the middle here somewhere. And then the white ones have got to go that way. That's a nice tangle, but it's got to come this way, and I think that'll come up through there. And all these wires have also got to come that way. The question is, do they go over the top of the bars or below them? The answer is, I think they go over the top. I'm going to run everything up over the top. I don't want anything hanging down below the bars, these rails. So I'm going to run them over the top of the rails. And again, this white wire, it's got to have some flexibility to it to go either way from the centre, because it traverses this way and back. So it's got to run over the top here. So does this wire. All of these wires have got to run the same way. I'm going to run them up through this aperture here. But we've got to leave somewhere in there enough slack. It's the duty of every wire to tangle immediately with every other wire it can find. That's the first rule of every wire you're ever going to unwrap. Right? Actually looks quite neat at the front, if that's any consolation. The back looks a mess. The front looks pretty nice. Rightio, so that's this wire. Now this is the fan, one of the cooling fans. And it's got to run the same way as this wire. So it's going to come up through here too, and up over there. And like the white wire, it has to have play. So all of these wires here, they're all the same. Right? They've all got to traverse over to here, and then back over to here. So they've got to traverse from about there. And what I might end up doing is bringing that conduit to there, but giving it a degree of freedom from this point. Now it can't come through here because the material comes down over the top. But that's a good point right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark it with this toroid for a moment. I won't leave that on there. That's just to mark the wires. And what I'll do is I'll replace that with a cable tie as soon as I can come put one to hand. And then that'll hold those wires roughly where they need to be. Now this wire, this is the power, and like the other wires, I don't want anything hanging below the job. So they're coming up over the top. They'll also come to there, but they'll go in this direction. And one of those wires will go to my fuse box, which I'm going to mount myself. So we're going to have fuses, and I think I'm going to mount them up here. Somehow. I've got to make a mounting bracket so that the fuses will sit in there. So that if I've got to change a fuse, I can just change a fuse. No problem at all. But I'm going to leave the fuses up here, up the top. So the power supply needs to come in on this side. Now we've still got this wire here to deal with, it's not plugged in. This is the hotbed wire. It's got the power wire and the signal wire. Now the signal wire's got to run up this way, power wire's got to run that way. And it's got to have travel. Now let's see if we can get this to go. It's got a slight angle to it. There it is. And what I want to do is run those power wires anyway. Let's have a think. Let's have a think. They go to the control box. They don't go to the power supply. They go this way. Because both of these have got to go into our board. So the board is going to sit here on this side, and it's going to sit this way. So the fuse box is going to sit over this side too, and it's going to sit up here. And I'm going to mount that using a bracket, which I'm going to make. So what I'll do is I'll screw a bracket and make it into a right angle bracket so that I can screw it to this and then screw it to the side. So it'll sit like this up here, up the top. You can't see a thing, I suppose. It's going to sit up here. And that way I'll have protection for the circuitry for that 12 volts, high power 12 volts. Rightio, so we've got those, we've got that, we've got that. Everything comes to this side. I don't think anything goes to the power side other than the wire, the ribbon cable for the power. I have to have a look and see what wires go through there. Now, what have I got left? I've got this. There's a ribbon cable in here somewhere. I've got this fan here. I don't know where that fan goes yet. Got to find where that has to get mounted. Here's the box. Power supply. That's going over this side. This fan has to go somewhere. There's a spot for it, but I just can't for the life of me think where it is at the moment. It's got to go somewhere. I have to find out where that fan goes. I haven't found the spot for that. There's a ribbon cable left. No, there's a ribbon cable in here somewhere. Here it is, one ribbon cable. Righto, so that's this one. So that ribbon cable goes into this plug. So we're going to situate that right now. There she is. all situated. One ribbon cable plugged into the power board. Now we've agreed that we want these plugs facing outwards, so it's going to mount this way. So this has to somehow go to something over here. I don't know what that goes to yet, but that's where it belongs on the board. Now these are the power supplies for the, you can see there, they're the high voltage out. So it's got that power rail there that says power, and then there's hot end and bed. So I think what I meant to do is run 12 volts to that using some cutaway of this, or some version of that. It's the only thing I can think of. Now we've got to make sure that this has enough play in it that it goes all the way to the top, all the way to the bottom. And this has enough play in it that when it comes back here, you see, we don't want this. It's going to snag on this this motor. And that was why I didn't want to mount this bloody thing yet. If it snags that motor, it's all over. And it does. It's hitting. So we're going to have to remove this and turn it. I'll put the plug to this side. Okay, so this is the wrong mounting procedure. We're going to pull it off, we're going to turn it 90 degrees so that the plug's over here. Have to God everything clears. Alright, so we've got a couple of fix-ups to do. I haven't worked out the 12 volts yet. 12 volts has got to come over here, which means we don't need two, we really don't need two fuses, we only need the one. But we've got to get 12 volts from this box over to this. So I don't know why there's two separate supplies for the 12 volts. It's confusing me. So I hope to God there's a wiring diagram somewhere, and we'll go back to the computer and we'll have a look at the instructions before we even attempt to wire anything. I think for now what I might do is run all this out the road and just mount this the way I want it. So this has to go in here, sits in there. I also don't like that it's exposed, so one of the first things I'll 3D print will be a cover for this, so it gets a cover over it. There is no cover for it, there's nothing in the system that designates a cover. So we'll go from there. Right, so the way I've solved this is that this plug was actually bent down, and I actually used a bit of brute force and bent it back up. So now it clears. So that's an issue dealt with. I'm going to continue with the build. I'm going to put this plate back on the way it was, so you don't have to reorient it. All you need to do is if your plug is down, just bend it up, which is what I've done. And it must have been bent in transit, I think, because I can't imagine why it would be bent. But anyway, there we are. Right, so I found the power wires, here they are. So they're what was missing for over here on the power supply. So they're definitely going through a 30 amp fuse, and what I'll do is I'll run one of those two through the second 30 amp fuse, probably the hot end. I'll run it through the second of the 30 amp fuses. I want two of them on the job. I want to make sure that we've got protection there. Righto. So we've got everything for the build now. We didn't end up changing the direction of the hotbed. We ended up leaving it the way it was. Got to replace the two screws there. Got to do all the wiring, get the control board and the power supply mounted and wired in, and double check all the wiring diagrams to make sure we're cool. I still don't know what this ribbon cable plugs into. It's quite possible that that's a RS232. What does it say it is? AWM 20 AWG. This might be for the older computer plug. RS232. It's not 9 pin. I don't know. But it might be a computer interface plug, this one. So we'll read that. We'll read up on that and see what it does. I've definitely got a plug for that. I've got some PLA that we can run for a test. What I'll do is I'll print a square and max out the square, and I'll just print it sort of half an inch thick or even a quarter of an inch thick right around the maximum borders, so that I can see that we get a result. Righto, so let's go for it. Okay, so we got the power box mounted. Trick one, this hole here was hard to get, and the way I did it was I put a piece of wire, had it here a second ago, had a little bit of scrap wire which I've lost, and fed it through into that hole there and just left it in there, just a piece of wire. Then I lined these two up, and as you can see there's multiple holes in there. Right, so make sure you pick the right ones. Don't go for the lower one, go for the upper one. And that way the piece of wire didn't move at the top. So the piece of wire didn't move there. Found that hole, found this hole, did this one last, and I was in. So that's how I got out of that problem. But the holes, if you choose the wrong ones, they don't line up. And here's my bit of scrap wire that I used. Right, so what I did was I fed that through the top hole first, got that lined up, and just left that piece of wire in there on that. And then I went ahead and put those in down the bottom here. So I put that one in, then put this one in over here. Then I came back to the top one, I took my piece of wire out, and it just went straight in. So that was the easiest way to do it. All done. So that's the power supply fitted. Over this side of it you can see it's wired up brown, blue, yellow on the plug, which is for whatever reason decided to twist around and play horrible things to me. I'll put a bit of heat shrink over that end of it just to give it some protection, right? But you can see the wires are definitely separated nicely. There's a piece of heat shrink just to give it that extra little bit of protection. There's nothing really to prevent that from twisting and pulling that out, so don't like that about this. And the second thing you'll notice about this power supply is that there's no separate power switch, there's no emergency cut-off. So the only way to cut the power, is to turn the power off at the wall. So we might do something about that too. We might come back to this and revisit the switch and put an emergency switch on it. What else don't I like about it? Well, there's a little Now this is one of the bits of wire that has to run underneath, I think. It's got to come somewhere to here, about this level. If we run it through the top, like it'll work, if you run it up with that bundle there and run it through the top. But I'm just worried about everything sort of running to the top of the build. Now the other thing that I couldn't work out was this ribbon cable here, and I've worked it out. This ribbon cable here plugs into there. So that's the final piece of the puzzle, is this thing. Plugs in that way. Oh, can't see anything. My hand's in the road, my jumper's in the road, everything's in the road, but that has to go in there. Come on, in you go. Now, what I ended up doing with this up the top here was I actually completely pulled that apart and redid it. And I think I've got footage of me doing it, but you can see I've put extra nuts into the build there and washers to stand those boards off, so that all of this front face, if I look at it side on, you can see it's all at the same height. Everything that's protruding from the board is exactly the same. Now I haven't put this system of screws in this corner yet, and the reason for that is I want to make sure I've got enough screws for the build, and I can always come back and put one in there later. But you can see that rear board is at a slight angle, and the reason for that is that that's the way the board was sat against the front face. So it has to be stood off separately, and to do it you've got to literally use a lot of hardware. There's actually, what is there? There's 2 nuts on the top ones, but there's actually 3 nuts on the bottom ones, and there's 6 washers. So there's a lot of hardware gone into making this arrangement, and I was just a bit worried I was using too much hardware up to get that situated correctly, and that I'd run out and I wouldn't have enough to put my boards on. But I've got the power supply mounted and wired. I'm just about to mount this this control board here on this side of the machine. It's got to go in there, and all the crap is all kind of everywhere at the moment, but I've still got a fan here that I haven't worked this fan out yet. I don't know where that belongs. I haven't really got an answer to that, not yet anyway, but I'll figure it out, and we'll get that mounted. But everything else should be good. Okay. Right, so if I had this on video instead of frickin' photo, you'd see what I was trying to do. So I started the hole here. It was a bit high, and I've gone in here. I'm going in with a portable drill, and I'm just going slow, and I'm giving it some back pressure. We're drilling out our mounting hole. There it goes. We got our mounting hole for this this fuse panel. That's a really good clean. That's a really good clean result. Now I need to countersink the head, so I'm going to use a bigger bit to cover out the head. I'm putting my drill bit away straight away so I know where to find it next time. I'm stepping it up to a nice big drill bit. I'm going up to a 5mm, which should get me over the top of the head of the bolt. I'll put it against the bolt real quick and just see where we are. Where's the piece? There's the piece here. Just going to put that up against the head. Yeah, it's pretty good. 5mm should be perfect. We'll go up one more. We'll go up to a 6mm. I want to make sure I can completely countersink this this head. Going up to a 6mm. Click, click. I like it when they go click. $6mm. I haven't had breakfast. Going to do something about that. Now you'll notice that I really can't do any damage if the drill jams. Now I'm just going nice and easy just to cut that head. And there we go, we countersunk. And that'll give us exactly what we need. Ah, bugger. I'm on the wrong side, aren't I? Look, you know what? I don't care. I don't care about being on the wrong side. I don't care. I'm going to mount it. Put it on the wrong side. It wasn't where I intended to have it, but you know what? I don't care. I'm going in. That's where it's living. Right there. That's where we're going with it. The screwdriver. It's going to mount on the back side. So we're going to bring all the wiring out this side. Bring it out here. That's our fuse, and then we'll go back into the looms and off to the power. I think that'll work for me. Has to work, because I'm not going to do anything else now. I just dropped that nut somewhere. Where did I drop it? Over here. See how good we did with our countersink? Countersink brings it in nice and flush. I'm just going to clean that out a little bit more. Just a touch. Just want that cleaned out just a touch more. Oh, we're golden. We're well and truly in now. Rightio. So we come through the unit. We've barely got 2 turns on this side, so this bolt, that needs to be countersunk a long way further. There's barely 2 turns on it coming through. That's the problem. Yeah, I'll have to countersink it even further. I'm really playing with fire here, folks, but we're playing. Countersink it further. We've only got to get 2 or 3 turns on it. I think that's all she's going. I'm not going to take it any further through that acrylic. That's all she wrote. You can feel it hitting on the nut. We're in. That'll do me. That'll do me for a roughie. She'll work. Put a little 1/4 turn on that. That is on. We've got our fuse panel mounted. So we've got our 30 amp fuses. That's going to be held proud of it anyway, so that's good. It's going that way. Everything there is good. I'm going to have to undo this because this has got to come back to here, and this has got to get spliced in here. We're going to have to put a notch in this one about here somewhere, and pull one of these wires through to come to here, and then push it back into the harness and continue it through to on its journey. I don't know that input and output matters with these things, they're just a circuit, so it's just a loop, there's no positive and negative, they're both the same colour, so they don't care which way you wire them. So I think we're in business. Let's have a look at what we got on the recorder. Yeah, we'd have got all that beautiful. You can see where it's mounted, you can see what I was talking about, that's all good. We're buggered up with cameras, but we're going to do our best. Right, just what I wanted. I wanted everything to fall over, that's why I took all that trouble to set it all up. Let's try standing it up here, see whether that does any better. Can't see very well there. Okay, so we're recording. Now if that falls over it's going to hit the floor, so I'm just going to put a chair behind it. Right, so what we've got for this next part of the job: wire strippers, wire cutters, needle nose pliers, sharp pair of scissors, general purpose pliers. Now these pliers, they're not mine, they were left here in the yard. I put a notice up to say that I'd found them, put it up for 2 weeks and no one claimed them, so technically finders keepers I think, which is great because when we first moved in here, the security downstairs was broken for a couple of weeks where someone destroyed the gate, and someone broke in and stole about $6,000 worth of my tools, and amongst them was a good set of handyman pliers that I'd paid about $100 for. Now these are a good set. You can tell the bloke that had them didn't look after them. I've just given them a bit of a rub down with a bit of oil and sandpaper to get them functional. They were completely jammed up with rust. They're now working. And they're a pretty good set of pliers, so I'm pretty happy with that, and they're now mine. So, pliers. Here we go. Now what we're going to do, what can you see? I'm going to take this, going to roughly measure off to the point where we want it, and we're going to nick the edge of this conduit with our scissors. Being very careful we don't take any wire. Just like that. Then we're going to use a screwdriver, pick our wire up. Doesn't matter which one you grab, just need a wire. There it is. And pull it back through. Now don't pull it all the way through, because you're going to cut and splice it and continue it on its way. So it's going to come out there, it's going to go on there. How much of this can you see? Yeah, can't see it. It's going to go on there. Where am I? Where's my hand? Gee, you can't see anything. There's the deal there. So there's the fuse holder. I've put the hole in it above the fuse holder. I put a loop of wire out because I'm going to pull it out and it's going to go onto the top fuse. And what we'll have to do is we'll have to put some tape, you know, so that tear that we've made in the conduit doesn't rip any further. So we'll just tape that off, and you know, protect it a bit. And that's the plan. So we're going to nick this wire, push it back through down the bottom, and the top one's done. And then we've got to do the same with the bottom. Alright, so let's get you back on my work area here. Everything wants to fall over. Yeah, it's pretty good. You can see things. Right, so we got our wire, our loop of wire. Can't see very much. And I take my wire cutters, give myself a here's our loop. Take my wire cutters, give myself a generous, sorry folks, I'm just trying to position. Alright, so we're going to try to position so that you can see something. It's about as good as I can get it, I think. Here's our loop of wire. Give myself a generous helping. Wire cutters. Kaboom. Done. We got our bit of wire going down and our bit of wire coming out where we want it here at the fuse. Right, we're going to strip this off using the wire strippers. Don't need a hell of a lot. What we do need is we do need it to strip. Bloody tough stuff. The wire stripper's not getting it because it's braided wire. So we're going to use our crimper. We're going to very lightly go around it and tease it out. And then we're going to get our scissors and we're going to cut that off. Because of the way this is going, I think I'm going to use a bit of heat shrink over this, just a little bit, just to give it that extra bit of, because I can see that that braid is going to start fraying its way down the system. I'm going to nick that off with my really sharp scissors, because we don't want this fraying. Now the wire is shielded, which is good. It's actually shielded anyway. See that? That shield that's on around the wire? So you can see that the wire is shielded and it's very thin and narrow, which is both good and bad. Because it now means I've got to get that onto this. Oh boy, oh me oh my. I've got to get a really thin piece of wire into this. And I've got to get it through this connection right there. How am I going to do that with these kinds of crimps? Well, one way to do it is to pull it right out, crimp the wire, then push that back up over the top, and then push some heat shrink up over the top. I've already done that with one of these things somewhere. I managed to pull it completely off its case. This is evolving into a bit of a, because of this shielding, this is evolving into something of an interesting job. I'm just going to trim this up with my scissors for the moment. That's actually fiberglass that's on the outer side. So it's actually coated, it's actually shielded in fiberglass woven braided fiberglass. There it is. And fiberglass, more fiberglass there. A lot of shielding. So that's why they didn't bother worrying about what because they'd already put it in a braid. That's continuing to fray further, even though I'm cutting it with the really sharp scissors there. So I'll need to seal that. I wonder if the cutter stripper will take that braid off that fiberglass. Oh, it does. Look at that. Beautiful. So the stripper took the inner braid, the inner shield, off really nicely for me. So we've now got an exposed bit of wire. I'm going to put a bit of solder on that. I'm going to drop the bloody camera. This isn't working. Hang on a sec. We are really struggling with cameras here. I'm using the iPad and it's just not conducive to taking good video really. But it's what I've got left because the other cameras let me down. There's something wrong with the battery in the other one. Now what we've got is we've got that exposed bit of core. I'm just going to see what kind of fit I get when I push this into this. It's not too bad. And when I say it's not too bad at all. So what I might do is I might grab some solder and drop this solder on this to give it some meat. And I'm just going to put a dab of solder on that so that when it goes in it's got plenty of purchase. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the same on this side. So what we've got to do is we've got to go round it with the cutter to strip the... Now these are razor sharp, these cutters. Right, and what I'm doing is I'm stripping that braid. Tearing it off. At that point, I'll come back in there with a pair of scissors and trim that out. And my scissors are also razor sharp. I keep my tools well maintained. If you pick up any tool that I've got, you should be able to use it straight away. Given that I haven't loaned it to someone who's just given it back to me covered in crap. I don't loan my good tools anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore. I loan the cheap tools out to people, that's fine. But all these tools, like these scissors, I've had these for over 30 odd years. They're still going strong because I keep them sharp. As you can see, you can trim anything with them. Cut hair or anything, doesn't matter. They were a cheap pair of scissors and I've had them for 30 years. That's how well I look after my gear. And they're sharp. Yeah, I'm going to have to come back in there. I'm going to have to come back in there with some heat shrink to cover this. I'm going to nick the end off it with the wire strippers. There it is. I might take a bit more than that. Just a fraction more. There it is. Now what I'll do is I'll come over the top of all of that after I'm finished with a little bit of heat shrink. I'm just going to nick that off so it doesn't unravel on me. And there's our two ends that we're going to put terminals on to come up here onto the onto that. So we're looking good, finally. This video is not going to be the best, but what the hell, that's what I got. So we're going to come in with two of these and some heat shrink that we've got over there. Might just go get that heat shrink real quick, put this on pause. Righto, so what I've done is I've moved over to the soldering station. Right on cue, the garbage guy's rocked up. Now, talking about the garbage guy, our waste, we've only had paper and a little bit of plastic this week. Everything was shredded up and it's on its way to landfill as we speak. Now, a bit of solder wire here. I've got some flux. I always dip my even though this solder wire has flux core. Noisy, isn't it? Even though my solder wire has flux core, I always use a bit of flux on my solder wire because it takes beautifully. So we're going to dip that in the flux so we get a bit of flux on the wire. Put it on the job. A little bit of flux on that. Away we go. Just going to seal these ends off with a bit of solder. Add solder to thicken them up a bit so they've got some real meat on them. There we go. See, that took beautiful. This one too. It's got flux on it. There we go. Now, what I'm going to try to do with those ends, well, I've got them like that, so I'm just going to use a bit of fire. So just bear with me a sec. Reaching over to the toolbox. And as you'd expect, it does nothing. I did a little bit. It's about what I expected it to do though. So the heat shrink is definitely necessary. Heat shrink. I've got to bring the scissors over and I've got to bring the crimpers and all the other tools over. I'm bringing the job across to the soldering station. Should have done that before I started. Just bringing the tools over. I don't need the wire strippers anymore. But you've got to make sure that your job is tidy. Someone's going to be looking at that. Here's our two terminals. So what we're going to do next is we're going to use our scissors and our heat shrink and we're going to give ourselves a generous amount. Times 2. Pop that over the wire. Like a this. Pop our wire into our bizzo. I'm pretty sure our heat shrink could come in straight away. That's how we're going to finish up with heat shrink in it. Pinches. Nothing beats a good solid set of pliers for this job. I mean nothing. So you line it up about there somewhere and away you go. And there it is. And there it goes. Like I said, nothing beats a good set of pliers. Not as good as I thought they were. Oh, there's the problem. They don't close all the way. Right, a little bit of maintenance required there. Right, so we are going to need the. Look, let me see what I've got. I know there's a set on this. These include the ones in the handle. Let's try that again. You know what, I'm going to heat shrink this on straight away. There it is. Now that can't go any further. Now I'll put this back on again. It's well and truly in there. Still coming off. Well, I'm going to call that a fail. These are no good. They're going to... Yeah, I'm never buying those. Don't buy these things. Alright. Because that, as you can see, well and truly got hammered home and crimped home, and it's still come off. I'll put the heat shrink on, and that's where we're going to call it quits for today. I'm going to go get some decent terminals for this job. They're possibly not the right size terminal for this job. That might be what's going on. I'll do some maintenance on those pliers and get them closing all the way. What you need is a good set of lineman pliers for doing this work. I don't have lineman pliers, I only have the household pliers. But those household pliers would be alright if they closed. Don't know why they don't close, but they don't. As you can see, that's closed as hard as I can push. They're not going any tighter, so there's something going on there. Something going on. Yeah, the cutters have got some. I've got to address these cutters down here. They've got some nicks. Someone's been cutting heavy steel with them. They're not meant to cut heavy steel. They're meant to squeeze the stuff together. Right then. So what else we got to do here? We could put another layer of solder on that, I suppose, if we wanted to. But I don't want to. The other thing we could do is we could solder those directly to the back of the fuse box. Interesting thought. Well, at least those are terminated where I want them. Just another situation where nothing goes the way you plan it and you got to adapt. Don't know what to do just yet. I haven't got any other kinds of terminal or crimps. I got that disgusted with them, I chucked them straight in the bin. I don't know that I've got any others. Here's one other thing I can try with this. Put it on there. Put it up in this part. Right up here. Well, that's gone. That is definitely on there. What I'll do is I'll use that and I'll come back and change them out when I get some better ones. Got to fish through the rubbish, all this rubbish that's in here. Here it is. Still a bit of stuff in there to be shredded up. Got to deal with that today too, take it down to the garbage. We've literally had paper and plastic this week. I hate getting things in plastic, but the fact is, when you buy shit, it normally comes in a bit of plastic. So most convenient stuff in the world is plastic. Done. It's crimped on there. I'll test continuity real quick, make sure I've got a signal through the wire. Now I'm going to have the same problem on this end too, I think. Bit of fiberglass going in the bin there. Probably going to have the same problem at this end. I'll chop that off. Now I'm going to keep that. It's a good bit of braided wire. Let's see, I want to go around it with cutters. Just like that. Same here. Just like that. Interestingly, the cutters exposed this one completely. One go. You're supposed to be able to do that as a professional. I've never really done that. I've always used the wire strippers. Right, let's keep going. Right, so I'm coming down to the terminal end of the cable, swapping gears a little bit. Coming down to this end, I've already tagged it for the hot end. And what we're going to do now is we're going to slip some heat shrink over this. I'm going to clean that up a little bit. As best we can. Heat shrink over it. Now, unlike the other one, right, this one's going straight into a block. So I don't need a connector on this. What I do need is to terminate it. Going to just terminate that. Now what I'm going to do, because I'm going into a block, I'm going to take my needle nose. Oh geez, you can't see anything. Cripes. Everything moves. Right, so I'm going to take my needle nose pliers and I'm going to bend this over. Just like that. I'm going to pinch it with my fingers. Now that's become rather untidy, but I'll neaten that up in 1 second. Because now what we're going to do is we're going to come back at that. Things are moving. Can't get this where I'm working. Don't like using things that aren't made to be cameras as cameras. Right, so when am I working? I'm working here. Righto, so if I can keep these things out of the road, you can see what I'm doing. Right, so what I've done is I've bent that in half. I'm coming back in with the solder and I'm going to solder that. Here's my piece of solder. Once again I dip it in the flux, so I've got a good supply of flux over the job. Get that one out of the road for a minute. And of course the camera wants to move and then turn off just at the critical point. So you need your soldering flux, your job, bit on the tip, everything moves of course. What you want to do is drop your solder right onto that. There we go. Now that'll happily go into that terminator, the terminal block. It's got a lovely neat piece of wire there to go into. I'm going to do the same with this other frayed up looking piece of rubbish end. Get it tidied up and then we're going to put that in the terminator block. Right. What I want to do is get all the wires going one way and all the threads going the other. At the moment I've got wires and threads in all directions. One way to sort the men out from the boys is do that. Right, so we've cleaned that wire up. Should I expose enough of this wire? Grab a needle nose, bend the end over just like a this. Push it back proud, pinch it. And come in with the solder and life's good. Bit of flux, bit of solder. Now if you're wondering, this is supposed to be leadless solder. No lead in that, but you'll notice that there's actually a filtered fan working up above my bench, and all that smoke and steam and everything else is drawn towards the fan, and the filter gets cleaned out and it doesn't go into the atmosphere. We're conscious again that we're not polluting when we do this stuff. Right, here's our result. 2 soldered up tips, covered up in heat shrink. They'll go straight into the hot end. This end here will go up into the unit, into the fuse. And we're halfway there. we're one done, and we've got another one to do. Exactly the same job. I'm not going to film it. I just want to get on with it. So as you saw, the final parts of the build are actually taking a lot longer than the pre-stage assemblies, I suppose. It's an old adage, as the closer you get, to your destination being in sight, the more it seems to run away from you. So that the last 10% of the build requires 90% of your effort. And that's true of this build. It's true of pretty much every project. But we've had some hurdles. We've overcome them. I'm looking back on the build now. This is getting to the point now where all that's left to do is hook the computer up to the to power and tidy up the wiring a bit, and then start calibrating and printing, and hook up to the computer, of course, and the software that controls the printer. So in the next stage of this, we're going to go through all that, and we had some interesting challenges even doing that. So it just remains that you've got to be focused on the task and stay with it. So to that end, I'm going to wrap this section up. I think it's an hour and a half we've been through of wiring and overcoming issues. We've modified the wiring in that we've fitted our own fuses to protect some of the higher amps or higher power components, the extruder and the hotbed. We had some bending issues to overcome. We haven't finished bending issues. We've still got more of those. We've got all sorts of like gremlins in the works still. Now at this point, I haven't taken apart the caddy, and you're going to see that causes a problem. And let's not sort of give away too much. But in the next part where we do all the calibration bits and we start ironing out the kinks in the printer, and it's time consuming. It took the better part of, I think it took the better part of 2 weeks for me to just finish this wiring section off and fixing my problems, because I actually generated more problems by introducing components, but also from lowering the deck a little bit, so I had that little bit of extra control on the travel. Suddenly I had things bashing into motors, and the solution to that was to simply bend plugs a little bit and bend things a little bit. But I'm not sure whether I've covered that in this episode or whether you're about to see that in the next episode. But you know what? It's a game of millimeters, and tolerances are quite tight. So you've got to take what you're given and look very closely at it, and decipher all the clues. And it's no different to any other situation you're presented with. And you can learn a lot from watching this stuff. You can see how other people overcome their difficulties, and you might be inspired. And I do hope that I've inspired you to overcome something that you're facing. All right, so to that end, I want you to keep on swinging at it. If you're copping a lot of flack from people, I'm copping it right now in my business. I'm copping all sorts of criticism. I've been labelled as a wily coyote and the Don Quixote, tilting at windmills. My business is focused on climate change and, recycling and producing products that would otherwise gone into landfill. This is new ground. It's not a new idea, but what I'm doing is I'm opening new ground, trying to raise awareness of consumers and, just be supportive of the idea that we all need to change. And no one wants to change. We get quite comfortable in our lifestyles and what we do. And change, it doesn't come easy and it doesn't come cheap. Now, to that end, I'd like you to support my company, nightglowmanufacturing.com. And, I can keep that company up and running, and I can employ a couple of people and just keep things moving along. this takes an awful amount of time out of me, and it takes a lot of effort too, because I'm not the healthiest person at the moment. I'm battling on some personal issues in terms of health, but I'm doing what I can. I keep plodding along, keep moving forward with what I've got and what I can do. Now, to that end, the first run of our end gems, when this goes to print, these PCBs have only just come in. They're made from recycled aluminium, right? So that's recycled aluminium, and those boards have been, stamped onto aluminium plate, and this is new. This stuff on top of the aluminium here, this is recyclable. Everything on there I can recycle, right? So when this gets melted down, this can get recovered and put back through the process. So, it's been produced overseas at the moment. What I hope to do is raise enough money to get my own equipment and produce them in-house, so that I can control how much pollution is going out of my company. And at the moment I can't, because I don't have the money for the equipment. But once I do have it, I can control that, and I can buy this material in at next to nothing, manufacture it myself, and control the amount of stuff that's going back out. Now, I've got a use for the dross. I've got a use for everything that comes off the melt of aluminium cans. I've almost closed all the loops. Not quite there, but I'm close, and I'll come up with it. I'll work it out as I go along, and I'm a pretty clever fella, so I'll work things out. But all of this, there's little bits of copper in there, there's little bits of solder. All of that gets recycled back through the system. Even the components that I put on my boards, we're changing the way people think. We're rating these components off things that people have thrown away, and we're turning it into NGEMs. Now, that doesn't come cheap. The NGEM, right, as a unit, is not cheap to produce. It costs money. And also, because I'm still trying to build things and expand, and that expansion has to be funded out of the sales of the NGEM. There are other products that we're going to be introducing to supplement the NGEM, so that we appeal to a wider marketplace. But at the moment, we've got the NGEM. So if you'll go to nightglowmanufacturing.com and buy those, we can keep feeding ourselves and employing people and keep moving forward. Now, I'm not asking you for charity. I want you to get a product that's going to do a job. And the NGEM, it's a night glow electric marker. It glows in the dark, and it does a job. And it's not charity. It's a certain amount of what you're giving me is going back into the community via outreach and via education, and it maintains my website and runs my business, and it feeds us. So that's it. It's different to buying the hat and the caps and those sorts of things that people put on their merch, and it's not. I'm not asking Patreon. I'm not doing all that. I want you to understand that when you buy an NGEM, you've taken that product would have otherwise have gone into landfill. So that's the point of this. Right, I've rambled on enough. Support nightglowmanufacturing.com. I want you to get into part 7, which is going to be the calibration and the final shakedowns of the printer to the point where it's plugged into the computer and working correctly. And that process, that final process, took the better part of a month. So part 7, again, there's hours and hours and hours of footage that didn't make it into YouTube. I've got lots of little problems that I solved and I recorded, but look, let's face it, it takes the better part of half a day to put these videos together and get them up onto YouTube. So, we're at 7 videos. So it's 3.5 days of my life just so that you guys can watch this. And then there's the bloopers, which was, I think, another 5 or 6 videos, and there's another 3 days. So there's a better part of a week taken out of my very busy life so that you guys get to enjoy these videos. And to that end, I'd like you to share them. I'd like you to subscribe to my channel, give us some support. Support nightglowmanufacturing.com. Make good decisions and do the good thing and keep on swinging at it, and we'll see you for the next episode.